Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. Alright, so, despite the fact that this channel is called Archie Sonic Fan, and Archie Sonic is my profile picture, I post a lot about it on my community page, I've hardly ever actually made any videos about it. Like, I've made a few, and that just comes from the fact that, well, I didn't really know what to talk about. I mean, if you want to look at really good Archie Sonic analyses, you can watch Low Arts videos for that. But I was recently rereading the Scourge Lockdown arc, and there was one specific part that really got me thinking about something. And it was so interesting, I thought I decided to make an entire video about it. And that is, what if Scourge just gave up being a villain? But in order for me to get to my point, first have to establish who Scourge is. And yes, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you do know who he is. But even if you don't, I'm not just specifically going to talk about his general backstory and all that stuff, but also just these little moments that I think all add up to why I even thought about making this video to begin with. So, we all know Scourge. You know, he's originally anti-Sonic or evil Sonic, whatever. But then with a little power boost off the Master Emerald, he finally became a somebody. A real Scourge. I cannot resist that. So yeah, he went from being a joke Sonic rival who's just his evil twin to being this edgy, cool, over-the-top like rival to him that not only was incredibly funny, but also made for some really interesting character drama. But to specifically dive into the topic of today's video, we need to dive into this first. And that is all his comparisons to Sonic. The comparisons he makes about the two of them, because I think the most interesting part of Scourge to me is that he goes so much further than a lot of other mirror villains do. A mirror villain listening the MCU and some other blockbuster movies love to do. You know, the villain has the exact same powers as the hero. How is he going to stop him? And this isn't necessarily a bad trope. It has been done well before. But Scourge does it so well because the focus is not, wow, how is Sonic going to beat a guy with the same powers as him? Is Scourge a little stronger than Sonic? I don't know. And that also ties into the pre-reboot Archie's love of story over action scenes, good as some of their action scenes are. So I think it helps this story really have a lot more depth than it otherwise could have been had it been under reboot or IDW. So in issue 172, I believe, Sonic finally sees Fiona again after she's been gone for a while, and he's asking, "Look, I want to straighten things out with you. So Sleuth and Scourge tell me that you've actually been cheating on me and going out with Scourge this whole time behind my back, which is why I haven't seen you in a while." Of course, some of his friends are telling him this too, which makes him wonder, okay, my friends are telling me this, I believe my friends. I also heard this from the villain, so maybe I shouldn't believe it, so what am I supposed to believe? And then when Fiona is finally about to reveal the truth to Sonic, Scourge shows up and just says, "Yeah, she was running around with me the whole time, loser." And then as Sonic and Scourge have yet another one of their fights, Scourge says, "I know why you hate me. It's not because of the Fiona thing or because I'm better looking. It's because, as the image says right here, it's all that it takes is one bad day and you'd be just like me." And of course Sonic responds to him with this line where he just kicks him down, confidently says, "No, the reason I hate you is because I know with one good day, you'd be just like me." Because at the end of the day, these are the same person, essentially. Sonic and Scourge are just two sides of the same coin. They're the same person, except each of them go in a different extreme, as Scourge says in this other panel I've clipped for here. And because he remembers what Sonic said to him, and started telling him about how, yeah, he pointed out that in the end, we're the same guy, that all it would take for either of us would be to lean a little in the other direction. And Sonic is surprised he was actually listening to him, and Scourge says that, yeah, it made sense to him. As he tells him, I'm king of a whole planet. I got that my way, not yours. Oh yeah, that's points for later. But anyway, so he's saying that, yeah, we both have the same powers. we have some kind of respect and authority, except Sonic used that power to be a hero, to be a nice guy that, despite having a pretty big ego in this comic, that's a major part of his character arcs, he is still a hero that does what's right and helps people. But Scourge decides, if I got all this power, I don't want people to just wave to me. I'm going to take over my world and become a king. People are going to bow to me, which is exactly what he ends up getting. Except, this is not what Sonic would want. But at the end of the day, he's still using the same things that Sonic has, that kind of respect and authority and power, except to take things to the next level. So yeah, even though Scourge's entire character is about how, which I guess I haven't mentioned yet, but is very important, is that he wants to establish himself as being more than just Sonic's rival. That's why when he got his new fur color, he didn't continue calling himself Evil Sonic. He gave himself a new name. He tries to establish himself as his own individual. But even as he's saying this, he's also telling Sonic that look how alike we are, except I'm the cooler version of you. But there are other comparisons that I don't think people really highlight, which is there are a few times where Scourge genuinely gets scared, and whenever he does, his face just looks like Sonic but green. Sure, he's also got different colored eyes, but because that's the thing. Aside from having the sharp teeth, Sonic and Scourge have the same general body design, just in different colors. So it makes sense that when you can't see his teeth, Scourge just looks like Sonic. And what I appreciate about moments like this, which I've shown on the left, which is all, there's also another page that shows it in a different issue, but when the few moments where Scourge is vulnerable, he just looks like Sonic. And I think that's really interesting. It's not only a funny image, like I thought of it at first, but it also goes into his character, which is that as cool as he tries to make himself out to be, much like Sonic, he can still get scared at the end of the day. He's not this flawless person. Of course, Scourge is definitely not flawless, but flawless as in he never shows any fear. But no, he does show fear. But then this other page I also see nobody ever talk about, even though it's really interesting on the right. So after Sonic has finally beaten Scourge, he's taken him to Zone Jail, and Sonic tells Sonic, besides, Scourge's mutation has made him something of a wild card in the cosmic scheme of things. And Scourge responds with this, hey, you can try to write me off as mutation, evil twin, whatever. But the truth is, I'm just Sonic the Hedgehog at his full potential. Because again, that further drives home the theme that even though Scourge is obsessed with being his own character, he is still comparing himself to Sonic. He's just telling, and he's not even saying that I'm Sonic but evil, which is technically what he's implying, but he's saying, I'm you, but at your full potential. I'm you if you really just took advantage of everything you had and took it to the next level. Now, of course, the next level means Sonic going from being a good guy who sometimes is kind of a jerk to a straight-up supervillain. And even as he says this, even as he's lost, he was in a super form where he had the power to destroy a planet. He got defeated by Sonic, who didn't even actually fight him. He beat him with words. He tricked him. He's getting taken off to jail, and he's still got that mean old, confident, cocky smile. And Sonic has no response to what he says here. I guess it's also because there wouldn't be enough time in the story, but he just looks at him thinking, huh. I always found this page to be really interesting. I'm pretty sure even when I first read it a few years ago. But for some reason, nobody ever talks about this, no matter how many times people have analyzed Scourge. But of course, before that, there's his whole downfall. Scourge has gone super. He's got so much power, and he tells Sonic, you're a loser for not listening to me. We could have ruled the multiverse together, but no, you had to go the holier than thou route. See where that got you? And he's talking about how he's going to destroy his world and conquer people until he finally gets the respect he deserves. And Sonic is thinking, I cannot beat this guy. No matter what I do, I cannot beat this guy. But he thinks, yeah, I guess he would eventually power down, but that's going to take a while. But then he realizes that because Scourge is an anti-Supersonic, it means that, well, Sonic's super form lasts quickly, but gives him a power boost when he powers down. Since Scourge's super form lasts so long, he would get it would drain his energy when he would power down. And Sonic's telling Scourge as he's about to kill him that, I got no regrets. I mean, you had to go super to beat me. I was able to beat you without any special powers. And Scourge is saying to him, I've been more than a match for you since day one. I can finish you, super or not. And Sonic just gleefully smiles at him and says, okay, prove it, tough guy. I wish I had dragged those images here, but... And of course, Scourge powers down, beaten as Sonic explains why he was able to win. But Scourge still doesn't accept it. He tries to get up. We get this amazing panel of the faces of the two hedgehogs. The Scourge says to him, conquered this whole planet. You're nothing. And then Sonic beats him up and says, you're a bully and that's it. You take the easy, nasty way out and get the quick reward. Big whoop. I do things the right way. I help others to make something bigger and better than just mean. The good guys always win in the long run. And there's the extra line that just isn't really relevant to this. Just cut off here. So yeah, even though Scourge has been beaten, not even in a fight, which he would probably consider to be fair, he was just beaten because he got tricked. And he just cannot stand the idea that the lesser version of himself beat him with mind games. And it's not enough that Scourge just gets slapped. He literally gets pushed into the mud. Can I just say how I love how it's the artwork in this issue? I mean, especially the way it's raining and the way the panels are arranged, it really feels cinematic. But then there's Scourge's lowest point. So, as I said before, even as he was about to be sent off to prison, he was still carrying that cocky smile. But now that he's actually been in prison for a while, when the Scourge lockdown arc begins, he has no confidence. These evil versions of what look like Lupe, Sleuth, and Drago Wolf of all characters are just beating him up. He just gets effortlessly beaten up by everyone. Everyone calls him Snot. I guess because he's green. He has all these panels thinking to himself about how back in his prime, he could have beaten these guys easy, but he's been beaten down so hard, both physically and mentally, that he just takes it. He literally has no other way other than just let these people pound him into the dirt. All these panels, them shaving down his quill so I guess he can't hurt people. He has laundry duty while he has two guards with batons next to him. He is roommates with an evil version of Bigger Cat who took his mattress, so Scourge sleeps on springs. He's getting used as a basketball by an evil version of Knuckles, I'm assuming. Bebop and the Rocksteady from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are making fun of him. Mina Mongoose and some other people are making fun of him. He gets dragged through a vent by them. And everyone just looks at him thinking, ugh, what a loser. I mean, the only people in this prison who are actually nice to him and want to be his friends are Al and Cal. The most random, obscure characters they could have pulled from, but leave it to Preboot Ian Flynn to bring back two super obscure characters and make it work. And yeah, we get continued scenes of him getting pushed around by evil Big the Cat, named Smalls, which is just brilliant. Of course, though, Fiona Fox did get the Destructics in an earlier issue of Sonic Universe saying she's got big plans for them. So she brought him along to get arrested to the multiverse prison and break Scourge out. Except when she's finally there saying, look, I got a deal with Finitivis to arrange some kind of plan for our escape, a job for us. I took all this time to get me and the Destructics arrested so we could break you out. Now, come on. He doesn't say, thank you, let's get out of this dump, or, whatever, thanks, I guess. Or, just leave me alone, okay? He gets up on the table, we can see his sharp teeth, and he just screams, you moron! You and all these lame freaks are gonna get me killed! And the next page, he's just genuinely scared. Much like I mentioned earlier, you barely see Scourge scared, but whenever you do, he looks like Sonic. We get these same panels again. He doesn't look like he's thinking, I can deal with this. He's thinking, no, I am gonna die. If people find out that he's gonna put a gang together to break out, he is gonna get torn to pieces. To the point of where even his Zone's version of Jeffrey St. John of all characters is pushing him around. And even There's an entire gang in this prison of people from his zone who are led by his zone's version of King Max of all characters. You know when you're getting pushed around by King Max that things are not going so well for you? Which I also find his inclusion interesting because we never actually saw him before. Like the Moebius version of Jeffrey was at least shown in one panel before, and I guess we could always assume a version of King Max existed in this universe. We just never saw him, but we do now. And he's telling Scourge at first how, I don't have any ill will toward you. I mean, you conquering my kingdom, sending me into the zone of silence, that was actually great for me. I got to carve out my own empire there. And I even support your idea for renaming Moebius. No longer does Mobius Prime cast its shadow over us. I have continued that little stroke of genius to every Moebian here, haven't I, Saint Croix? Because, his name has changed from Saint John Saint Croix. Even his name Max is spelled with two X's instead of one. But since he thinks Scourge is trying to put together a gang, he's telling him, I thought our agreement was that you wouldn't challenge my power here, and my gang wouldn't tear you limb from limb. And of course, Scourge is trying to defend himself because he's not trying to do that. But as King Max says, please, 5 former associates of yours, one of them your girlfriend, just happened to be arrested at the same time. And Scourge says, it was her idea, not mine. They're not with me, you crazy geezer. And King Max just says, ha, insults won't save you now. He is just beaten down until the Destructics once again show up to save him. And once it's just him and Fiona, she's telling him, come on, you've been able to fight Sonic and Shadow at once. You can do better than this. Where's that spirit in you? And he's saying, well, for one thing, these collars they have around everyone keeps him weak. But also he's saying that what went down there was just what he expected. Everyone is trying to beat him up now for supposedly making a gang, even though he's not. And Fiona tells him, so, just kick their teeth in. And he says, easy for you to say. Listen, Fee, I've been beaten into the floor 10 times too many. I just want to be left alone. This single page here, I guess it's half a page, is what inspired me to make this video. Because, yeah, I've noticed Scourge having Sonic-esque expressions before, and I've always found it funny, but this is a panel where I really just understood that these are more for just humor. These are just genuinely really smart attention to detail that says a lot about his character, because in this silhouette, we can't see the color of his fur. I guess we can see the color of his eyes, but if you miss that detail, then for all you know, you could just think this is Sonic over here if you don't have any other context or see any other images from this story. Because that's what he is here. He's not some super over-the-top confident guy saying how much of a loser everyone else is and how cool he is, how he's going to conquer them ever. He's just saying, and much before when he's in the cafeteria and the Destructics tried to save him, he got up on the table and yelled at them to go away because they were going to get him killed. But here, he's just sitting on his bed with just no mattress, just springs, sitting down saying, look, I don't want any part of this anymore. I just want to be left alone. And even as Fiona's telling him, well, you need a team then, like Sonic, and he says, ha! Yeah, just rub salt on the wound, why don't ya? I shouldn't need a bunch of fuzzy buddies to cuddle up to. I conquered a whole stinging planet on my own. And Fiona says a line that's always cracked me up, but thinking about it deeper is also just really interesting character work, which is she says, babe, be honest with yourself. You just beat up a bunch of regional warlords and said that made you a king. I love there's a ... between the you just and beat up. Because she's almost scared to tell him that you didn't really conquer your world. You just beat up a couple guys who own some large chunks of land and said you ruled the planet now. I mean, he sort of did, but also not really. So, yeah. But that's just true. Because that also further ties into Scourge's character. He's always trying to say how great he is, when in reality he's always overstepping and exaggerating how great he actually is. Now, of course, in the next few panels, he does gain his confidence back. Thinks, yeah, I can use the Destructics as my team. They'll listen to me if I just, I don't know, just try to make them respect me, and we can break out. Boom! I'll go back to my own ways. But the question now is, if that didn't happen, what if Scourge stopped being a villain? There's no way he would ever just stop being a jerk like Sonic had hoped, but it's more so a case of, yeah, what if in that moment he just, as he told Fiona, I want to be left alone, she tried to convince him, well, you need a team. He would say, no, I don't want a team, I just want to be left alone. I'd rather rot in prison here than make some crazy escape plan, go fight Sonic again, only to get beat up again. And she mentioned Finitivis to him earlier, and I think he knows that he doesn't want to mess with Finitivis. I mean, during the whole Enerjack thing, he had a warp ring ready to leave to his zone because he was convinced Mobius would get blown to pieces. Like, he knows that guy is not to be messed with in whatever crazy plans he's cooking up. So, yeah, even though this title of this video is something like, I'm glad Scourge didn't um stop being a villain, but what if he did? Because yeah, I think it'd be pretty contradictory to his character to stop being the crazy villain he is, but what if he did stop? Because I think there's some really interesting story potential there. Because also raises the question that, well, if the Destructics aren't going to break out for Scourge, what are they going to do? I mean, I guess they could still arrange a breakout attempt, but it also adds some other things too. Could they even have broken out? I mean, they needed all four members to break out, and Lightning Lynx didn't seem like the kind of guy who wanted to break out of prison. I mean, we see him actually go to group therapy, and the only reason he even gets riled up into going along with Scourge's crazy plans is because Scourge shows up and says, hey, we should get out of here and get revenge on Conquering Storm for being a huge jerk to you. If Scourge didn't become horrible again, he would never have shown up there, and maybe Lightning Lynx would have actually reformed, which is also really interesting if you think about it, because the Destructings are definitely bad guys. Like, there's no sugarcoating that. They worked for Mammoth Mogul with zero thought about how maybe I shouldn't work for an immortal supervillain bent on world domination, but they did have some kind of camaraderie with each other. During the whole journey to the East Arc, Fiona said that they'd only accept me as a leader if our first mission was to get Lightning back on the team since he had left. Because as they say, he was one of the original four. He is our brother. I think these guys would just stick together no matter what. So if Lightning just ended up staying in prison, I think they would have just stayed in prison. You might say, well, what if the Destructics did want to break out? What about Fiona? Because even though she's their leader, she's not really a member of the Destructics. At least she's not a founding member. I think if Scourge stayed, she would just stay too. She'd say, okay, fine, you've clearly got no one here. And since she's still in love with Scourge because she has serious dependency issues, she'd probably stick in prison just to be there for him and, I don't know, maybe try to slightly console him because his entire image has been utterly shattered to pieces. This video was way more interesting and in-depth than I thought it would be. I don't know how long this is going for, but it's probably longer than I thought it'd be, but I think that goes to show just how much it was in pre-reboot Archie Sonic, especially the Ian Flynn stuff. I mean, this entire video was conceived out of half a page. And then it just made me go back and look just how much depth is tossed around this comic. So many facial expressions hide paragraphs and paragraphs of analyses. I think that's one of the things I miss most about this era of Archie Sonic and why it's my favorite comic book of all time. There's just so much to be said here because, for me, I really like big worlds with big casts of characters. There's such a thing as making it too complex, sure, but I feel like what works here is that each character is given the time to shine on his own. Each character is given specific moments to get you to care about that character and understand his mental state almost. Like, even characters as random as Octo and Croctobot, well, they aren't deep characters, they still get a payoff that has meaning to it. I mean, as much meaning I mean, the joke was that their return is stupid, so it gives meaning to them by saying these guys were such losers. What if they were interrupting a far better story, so Sonic, Shadow, and Scourge agreed to stop fighting each other and kill Croctobot in one panel? That was hilarious. And that just really says just how much is put into this era of Archie Sonic. I mean, I don't want to rag on Ian Flynn too much because this whole video wouldn't exist, this whole channel wouldn't exist if not for him. But his writing has always been weird to me, because pre-reboot Archie Sonic, despite having a few problems here and there, was amazing. Like, his run, Ian Flynn's run, that 88 issues of the main series, and I guess the 50 issues of Sonic Universe, that was a really incredible comic run with a great story that perfectly built on its foundation, because pre-Ian Flynn, Archie Sonic had some really good stuff, but also some really bad stuff, and was just really inconsistent. It was never boring, but it was never consistent either. So to take that foundation, be able to make a really interesting story out of it that feels like it's actually going places and it has focus, that is why I love Archie Sonic Online so much, and why I really want to get Lost Hedgehog Tales someday. Flynn better hold to his word when he says, I'm going to release it before I die, I promise. Which, I guess, one more note on that. He has said that he had plans for all the way up to issue 300, but because this topic isn't really about Scourge, it's about Archie Sonic as a whole, but the comic didn't have a planned ending. Ian Flynn has said, since it was a comic book and it was doing well, we just thought it would go on forever. So, in a way, while I do wish the comic continued a little longer, I think the pre-reboot ending when it did may have actually been a good thing, because we're at a point where we can see what the ending would be. Sonic is back, better than ever. So even if Eggman is, he's telling him, "I am going to defeat you once and for all." So even though we know that's not actually how things are going to go, because the story has to go on forever, in our heads that's how it will end. We may never get to see that ending, but in our heads we know that's how it should end, and that's just, hey, what if the comic was ending, Flint found out the comic was ending soon, but was told, hey, you still have time to give it an ending, so we said, okay, I'll make that the ending. Of course, this is all just hypotheticals, and this has basically nothing to do with this video. I just thought it was a really interesting conversation piece. I don't know, that could be a whole video in and of itself. So, I'm really happy with how this video turned out. I hope maybe I can make some other videos like this at some point. Hope you're all having a good summer. And remember to stay way past cool.